This is the Gambling Gauchos.
Somebody turn on some damn music!
You're listening to the Gambling Gauchos. Talking Texas Tech, betting on the Big 12 and beyond. We've got everything you need, money lines, memes, and matadors.
Well, you want to quit, Ethan? That'll be the day.
Now, here's Kyle Jacobson and Rob Bro, the Moneyline Matadors, the Casino Cowboys, the Parlay Picadors.
You see, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns, and those who dig. You dig. With
The Gambling Gauchos. Oh, and one more thing. It's all West Texas. It always has been.
Welcome to the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He is Ryan Mainville.
Money Mainville.
Money Mainville. By the way, you never notice how long that intro is until it's like something new and you're trying to get into it. We are recording from the Cardinals Sports Center studio. As always, if you want to gear up for a TCU game this weekend, you can get your cactus collection there at Cardinals. I think maybe the cactus thing has just gotten so big now that people don't quite relate it to TCU, but that did start from Brian Carrington there at TCU. So if you want to go wear some cactus merch to Fort Worth this weekend, you can do so, and you can get it at Cardinals. Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Excited to be here. Excited to talk some tech sports, and man, excited to be a Gaucho. That's for sure.
Man, we're excited to have you as a Gaucho. So I guess we crossed paths, I don't know, 3 years ago now. It's been quite a while. You were at Texas Tech. At the Daily Toreador? Or at KTXT? Right. Okay. At the Toreador.
Yeah, DT, yeah.
Gotcha. And then you kind of move on. You're at the Dallas Morning News. You have these bylines. You went and did some stuff with the NBA. So who is Ryan Mainville, and kind of how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, man. Well, since it's all West Texas, I'm Texas Tech through and through. Studied there and have just always loved sports, and that's kind of what brings me behind the mic today. I've just always tried to do things that get me involved in sports because I feel like they have some of the best stories to tell. So did some work with the New York Knicks last summer, did some writing with the Dallas Mavs a couple of months back, and then since then it's been the Dallas Morning News covering Texas Tech, and there's no better program to cover, and excited for what this will look like.
What do you think this is going to look like? Because we've talked about it a little bit of you coming in the fold and doing some things for us. Is there anything special that you think Money Mainville brings besides a hell of a nickname and just a level of expertise? Because I know a lot of people look at you as one of the stronger voices in Tech basketball for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, I hope that ultimately we can just have some more fun together. I'm hoping to create some content that speaks with a West Texas voice, because I feel like I've learned that listening to the West Texans around me and just being a part of this fan base. And so, yeah, I hope some more engaging content and just reminding everyone that, hey, it's all West Texas.
It is all West Texas. You're also a guitar player, I see, or you just like to hang them on your wall. One of the two.
I am. Yeah, that would be really expensive.
That would be some expensive wall art, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm a musician as well.
Okay,
big
cool.
part of my life. Yeah.
What all do you say? Musician, is that? I see a piano, maybe too.
Yeah, that's right. I've very recently started playing piano, maybe about a year, but I played guitar for about 7 years.
So you're going to get like a Gaucho, maybe some cover songs, or maybe a theme song from Ryan Mainville?
Dude, I'm pulling out my notepad right now we speak.
Hell yeah, let's do it. I play the tuba, so maybe I could lay down. I did play the bass guitar for a couple of months in a band.
Okay, there we go. We got the whole package now.
They replaced me. Oh man, but it was a fun time. I like music, and In a lot of ways, you just kind of look at sports content, especially how we do it and what we do, as kind of an escape, right? It's just being on Twitter, man. It's a job, sure. Writing is a job. Blogging, whatever you want to call it, is a job. But also in a lot of ways, just kind of venting through your process as you do it is, I don't want to say therapeutic because it's also a work and takes time and is strenuous, but it's just sports, man. I think a lot of times we forget that, and it's just like, hey, man, let's have some fun. And I think you and I are going to have some fun with Kyle and the Gauchos and the crew, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I have always really appreciated this industry and the ways that people can storytell in different ways. You know, there's radio guys, there's very traditional print media guys, there's guys that just live on Twitter. And I think anybody can have a voice. And I think you guys have been a great example of kind of creating your own lane. And I hope to continue to be a part of that and contribute to that.
We do. We try to stay in our own lane, but sometimes it's hard. All right, we've got a game coming up this weekend. Texas Christian. And this is a team that I did not think was going to be good. I underrated the talent that they had on their roster because you look at it, you look at their recruiting for the last 4 years, which is kind of the window you look at. You look at guys like, you know, the running back Kendra Miller, you look at Quentin Johnson, you look at Max Duggan, and it's like, you know what? Are they busts? I know Miller had 7.5 yards of carry last year, but they only gave it to him 83 times. Is he weak? Is he soft? What's going on? And then you have Quentin Johnson turn into Megatron. You've got Kendra Miller with 135 carries through 8 games instead of 83 through 12. He still has over 6 yards of carry. Max Duggan learned to throw somehow. And Garrett Riley and Sonny Dykes they were really good at SMU taking 3 or 4 transfers a year and bringing them in. Well, they basically got a whole roster of transfers because they got to come into something new, and they have excelled exceedingly. How far above are they from your expectation? Because I started as maybe 4-8, to be honest.
Yeah, I did not think that they were going to be good. I mean, you kind of looked at the hype that was surrounding that first game of the season against Colorado. Now, none of us knew how terrible Colorado would be, but that was like a must-watch game to open the college football season. And here's TCU that, you know, now the first week of November, there's people that are outraged that they didn't make the college football playoff first ranking. And so they've definitely kind of turned the tide on their season and on what a lot of people think they were going to look like. And I mean, even thinking about week 1 where there was, you know, quarterback controversy and you didn't really know who was going to start. And now you've got Max Duggan that, I mean, a lot of people think deserves to be in the Heisman race. And so this is a team that's really impressed me so far, just with what they've been able to do offensively, the consistency that they found. I know that the close games has kind of been a knock on them, but the way that they've been able to pull through and win those games, I think says a lot about the direction the program is heading in under Sonny Dykes.
Yeah, and you look at this point in the season, you're kind of looking at similar games. So you go West Virginia. Tech blew them out. West Virginia was close. But then you kind of say, well, West Virginia, Baylor, you kind of throw that one out. Then you go Oklahoma State. That was a close game. It was a close game for TCU at home. They pushed through and won. It was a close game for Texas Tech on the road. They could not push through. They did not win, even though they're up a touchdown in the third quarter. Kansas State the same way. Now, here's the deal and the common theme with a bunch of TCU games, which people are saying is why they don't respect them still. Kansas, backup quarterback. West Virginia, they needed a late touchdown with 20 seconds left on the board to cover and hit the over, which screw you, Sonny Dykes. You have Oklahoma State, Spencer Sanders injured at the end of the game. Kansas State, Adrian Martinez plays a drive. Will Howard torches him for 3 quarters, and then the third string comes in after Will Howard is hurt, and it all falls apart. So TCU has not played a full-strength team, but at some point, wins are wins.
Yeah, and I think the way that they've been able just to pull through these close games. I mean, you look at their schedule in the last 4 weeks, they haven't had a margin of victory larger than 10. So they've been in some nail biters, regardless of the situation. I think that's what makes this Texas Tech game really interesting. Is you could make the case that Texas Tech is at full strength at quarterback. They may be healthier than they've been all season, but nobody knows what they're going to do. Nobody knows what they're going to do. Obviously, Baron Morton is the bona fide quarterback one. I think that's clear at this point. But Texas Tech football is going to keep trying to trick people. And so maybe TCU will be watching the press conferences and keeping their ears on that. But it's an interesting situation just regarding how TCU season has played out so far and the health of Texas Tech's current roster.
So we usually do like if Texas Tech wins, how they do it kind of thing.
Yeah.
If Tech scored 42, and I told you that was Tech's final score on Saturday afternoon, would you say they won the game?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not so sure. I mean, you've seen
it's going to be a shootout.
Yeah,
for sure.
You've seen these two teams even. 2015 was 55-52.
Something like that.
The 2014 game was, a large score one way. Though I think Tech scored ended up, 84-30 something? Whatever it was. When they ran out of fireworks. These two teams, it's either that or 24-3. And I just don't see that kind of game playing out this year.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, you look at TCU and the strength has definitely been the offense. You look at Texas Tech and I mean, their defense has pulled through in some pretty key situations. And I think the reason that 42-point mark gives me at least confidence as of right now is because I think it indicates that they probably didn't turn the ball over very much. And in that case, that makes me feel much better about Texas Tech's chance at a victory.
That's a good point. Nobody runs more plays than Texas Tech on offense, but nobody's more explosive with their plays than TCU. I guess, how do you see this game playing out? I obviously think it's going to be a shootout. I have not decided on a score yet. My score is going to be outrageous, but just kind of the bare bones. Do you think Texas Tech has an opportunity to go out and maybe run the ball against the TCU defense that's not quite as tough against the run and kind of susceptible against the pass as well, and then just kind of hold on defensively?
Yeah, I think regardless, they're going to try and do that. I would be surprised if Texas Tech doesn't come out and try to run the ball a little bit to start the game. I mean, Zach Kittley talked about that in the press conference this week of, hey, I should have ran the ball more. I should have gotten my quarterbacks more comfortable in that situation. This is a TCU team that's allowed over 150 yards on the ground for 2 games in a row now. And obviously you're talking about some solid running back teams like Kansas State and West Virginia, but Texas Tech has 2 good starting caliber running backs. And so I think the run game will definitely be a factor, at least on first down. And you've got to use that to your advantage. You've got to use that to kind of settle down your quarterbacks and your offense to hopefully try and, just retain your possessions and make good plays.
I like you said, quarterbacks.
Quarterbacks? Yeah, that's right.
All 3 of them.
Maybe 4. Who knows?
Hey, Cooper Lefebvre, man. Let's see him. Or, what's his name? Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker.
Yeah, there we go.
I think looking at the TCU offense, Max Duggan probably Big 12 player of the year, quarterback of the year, all Big 12 quarterback. Kendre Miller, top 3 running back in the Big 12. Probably with Deuce Vaughn and Bijan Robinson. I think you could argue that Kendre Miller's been the best running back in the Big 12 with some of what he's done. And then Quentin Johnson, let me read you these stats real quick. So he only has 4 touchdowns. Xavier Worthy, obviously, probably the best receiver in the Big 12, but Quentin Johnson has 42 catches for 650 yards. He's got the second most yards in the Big 12. Xavier Hutchinson, who is the only receiver Iowa State has, 77 catches for 830 yards. Quentin Johnson has 42 catches for 650 yards. It's just amazing to me. I mean, he's legitimate, and he's not the only weapon they have, but I think he's the true game changer.
Yeah, and last week was the week where he was kind of on the sidelines for most of that game and then came in and made that score towards the end of the game that just looked effortless. He broke free for like a 30-yard touchdown. I mean, yeah, that guy is doing some crazy things on the football field this year. To stop a 6'4" guy with that much speed it is just a nightmare for any defense. And I think, the ways that Texas Tech's DBs kind of played last week, they're going to need to turn their heads around.
Yeah. Tech's defense, man. I keep hearing how good it is. Okay? And it's good. It's been good. But I mean, they gave up 41 to Oklahoma State, right? They gave up 45 to Baylor. Now, cheap touchdown at the end. Gave up 38 to Kansas State. You were in the 30s in overtime against Texas. They didn't score. I mean, you're averaging more than 30 points a game defensively. Can you put a whole game together defensively like you did against West Virginia again in the Big 12? Now, tall task against TCU. Tall task. But I do want to see a bounce back from the defense that has played pretty well. And then just broke against Baylor. They got gassed late in the second half and just kind of, man, if Richard Reese is going to run 36 times and if Baylor's going to run 59 times, there's just nothing much we can do. Now, offensively, you weren't very complimentary, but man, 45 points is a big number, even with 5 turnovers. And I get it. It's not just the number. It's how the game was played, but I just expect less points, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And I think, we're going to see a little bit of a different game this week. Obviously, TCU is very much more on the same page of Texas Tech's offensive tempo. They're not going to be winding the clock down to 3 seconds or less like Baylor did. They're going to want to move the ball pretty fast. And in a weird way, I actually think that'll play to a bit of an advantage for Texas Tech's defense because it's what they practice against and it's what they're conditioned for. They're not conditioned to be out there for 8 minutes every single drive. It's just brutal for your team. But, I think you've just got to protect the football. I think you can't give up big plays. And I think really what we've seen is that the front 7 on this defense is typically pretty solid. It's hit or miss, but like you've got good guys coming off the edges. The nose tackles are doing really well. Where it begins and ends for this defense is with the corners and the safeties. And so those guys, I think, really determine the outcome of this game.
Rashad Williams is over 6 feet, 6'3". It's a big corner.
Yeah, I think so.
You think he mans up with Quentin Johnson?
I think they'll probably have 2 on him.
Yeah, well, hopefully 2 or 3, depending on the situation. Baylor was a bad matchup for Texas Tech. They're slow, plodding, methodical. Grimes, I thought, beat DeRuyter in a lot of ways. Kitley was also beat by Ron Roberts. I thought that was a coaching game. Certainly some talent involved. They've recruited better than you. I'm trying to convince myself in my mind, Ryan, that Texas Tech is a bad matchup for TCU. Because maybe because they're similar, just without the spark athletes. I mean, you have a fast offense. You have an offense that can go toe-to-toe. And you have a defense that's capable of stopping people. West Virginia hasn't proved they can stop anybody, and they stopped TCU for a half. Kansas hasn't stopped very many people. Oklahoma scored 1,000 on Kansas. TCU managed 38 and looked lost for a while. And again, I don't think TCU is bad, but I don't think they've played at full strength good teams in this conference. And I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion that Texas Tech is going to have a good game. And maybe it's a feeling. Maybe it's just a want because it was so bad last weekend. I need to pick me up. But it just feels like this matchup for Texas Tech is something that TCU has not seen yet.
Yeah, no, I think that's a totally fair take. And I think you look at the way that this Texas Tech defense has kind of come around and the ways that they've adjusted to the schedule. And, you look at the early season slate, they obviously have a cupcake against Murray State. And then they win a close one against Houston, get beat up in the road against NC State, and then that big win over Texas. And then since then, they haven't really been able to pull off those close games, especially against Kansas State and Oklahoma State. And then you've got 2 blowouts back to back, one a win and one a loss. But, I think TCU is a team that's used to being in this position. They're used to having their backs against the wall and kind of, fighting for their lives in the fourth quarter. And I don't think Texas Tech has shown that they can really be in that position and win since the early season. Now, granted, that's probably still in them. But I think this is a good matchup for Texas Tech, all things considered. I think the offenses match up well. I think that you've proven that you can stop the run at times. Now, of course, you've got a couple of really bad performances on your game log now. You've got over 340 yards against Kansas State and 230 yards against Baylor. You can't let that happen to you with the talent that they have at quarterback as well. But, you look at some of the performances against teams like West Virginia. They've got a couple of good backs, North Carolina State, and I think that gives you reason to confidence. And you've got to you can't let them beat you on the ground and in the air. You've got to just sell out and stop one. And I think they'll probably go with the air and try and slow down Max Duggan. And so, yeah, man, I don't think that this is by any means a game that, I would be picking a double-digit spread on. I think that this is probably going to be a fun game. TCU is obviously a pretty fun atmosphere for Tech fans usually. And so I think it'll be a close one. I feel optimistic, but ready to see what happens when both teams actually take the field on Saturday.
All right, this is a gambling podcast, or so we try to pretend every once in a while. Let's go through some prop bets. Now, these are not live anywhere because they do not have prop bets on this game for some reason. So if you look at a few places where we generally get them, you can't find them. But I have a few that I was just kind of milling around earlier that are kind of some either ors. So who leads the game in receiving, either Quentin Johnson or the combo of Miles Price and Xavier White? So who has more yards, one TCU guy or the duo from Texas Tech?
I got to go Johnson, man. He is such a tough matchup. I hate to do it, but he feels like the safer pick.
I agree. And really, you've seen Xavier White or Miles Price. You've not really seen them together. Now, similar position, though at the start of the year they were playing 2 positions, and then you kind of just have one on the field most of the time because you're using a tight end and you don't use 4 wide. But if you can find a way to get those 2 receivers on the field, I think they're your best receivers. And maybe that's something they try to do after the Baylor stall. Rushing yards, again, the duo from Texas Tech, Saradrick and Taj or Kendre Miller.
I'm going the duo. I feel like Texas Tech is going to try and establish the run early, and I feel like they'll pick up some yards early in the game. And so, yeah, I'll take the duo.
If you can replicate the Texas game plan, I think you can win this game.
Yeah.
And maybe not exactly, but because it's the Barron style instead of the Donovan style. But if you can work the middle of the field, run the ball, and just survive on defense with 2 or 3 chunk plays instead of 7 or 8, I really think you can win this game. All right, Baron Morton, down week, but I think he had 325, 350. Let's say he breaks 280 against TCU. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Let's give it 300 yards, over under. Baron Morton.
Yeah, I'll take the over.
Okay. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I think.
Making me sweat. It's making me sweat, but I think Texas Tech's probably going to run. Oh, goodness. 95, 100 plays of offense in this game at least.
Right.
So I feel like I got to take the over there.
All right, let's go Max Duggan, total yards, 315.
Over.
Yeah. You've been pretty good at containing. Now, Adrian Martinez busted 2 really long runs, which is the crazy thing. The 2 running games you talked about, Kansas State did it in 3-4 plays. Baylor did it in 59. Like they had 3 yards of carry, and I don't think they broke any of them for longer than 15. Kansas State had 4 carries longer than 50. So I don't know. It is still worrisome, but you've been pretty good. They just kind of bled you to death, whereas Kansas State broke a few. But yeah, 315. That might be low. It would be the surprise of the century if this game just came out and was, 24-18. I just don't see that happening. All right, let's make a few picks here in the Big 12. We'll go down from the Action app. We'll start Kansas State, Texas. Kansas State at home, plus 2.5.
They're going to cover.
Right. I mean, I might go Kansas State money line.
Yeah.
Do we know if Adrian Martinez is healthy?
I don't know, but throw in the guy that just shredded the number 9 team in the country for 48 points.
Well, yeah. Keep Will Howard in there. You're right. I'm a big Will Howard fan. The total 54.5. Do you have any lean on that?
I'll go over.
I think Texas will score.
Yeah.
Yeah. Iowa State, West Virginia. Iowa State at home, 3-5, winless in the Big 12, -7.
I hate picking Iowa State to win. Oh, man. Yeah, I'll take West Virginia to cover.
I think I will too. Plus 7. I mean, that seems a little bit outrageous.
Yeah, I don't trust that Cyclone offense.
And then 50 is the total. I would stay away from that. I have no idea.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's really low, but sheesh. Oklahoma State, Kansas. 18th ranked Oklahoma State, coming off that beating, is -2 in Lawrence.
Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm hammering Oklahoma State. This is the prime bounce back. Total 64.5. I might take the over.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. Baylor on the look ahead was plus 9.5. They're plus 3.5 today. Baylor plus 3.5 in Norman. Total 61.5.
Baylor to cover.
Would you pick them to win? I know you want to, kind of.
Yeah, I do want to.
Let's
Probably
see.
not.
Plus 140, so it's not a ton of value. Man. Has Oklahoma kind of secretly figured some things out under the radar?
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm not worried about Oklahoma to finish the year, but depending on what happens against TCU, you're kind of in danger zone of bowl contention if Oklahoma's good. Because you still have to go 2 Ames, tough place to win.
Yeah.
And then Kansas at home, who really knows if what if Jalen Daniels comes back early? And then you're having to win 2 or 3 and danger. Winning this weekend would help. Plus 9.5, total 69. Can I get a score prediction and this pick here? Texas Tech, TCU.
Oh, man. Well, I can't pick Texas Tech to lose on my first episode as a Gaucho.
You can.
So I'm definitely riding with the Red Raiders in this one. I'll pick Texas Tech to win this one. Let's go 48-45.
I would love that. And I just talked about the defense needing to step up or whatever. I do not care what the defense does in this game. If Zach Kittley Yeah, you need 2 stops. If Zach Kitley can outduel Garrett Riley and Baron Morton can look like the guy after last week, I'm all in again. Not that I'm not all in now, but I'm not as bold. This is not my first episode. So I'm going to go, man, you scored 48 against West Virginia. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to say 51-48, heartbreaker. You're up. They close out like they've been doing. Over, cover. That's all she wrote.
I like it.
Speaking of liking it, Regenio Barbecue in Olton, Texas, top 50 barbecue joint. Go out and see them. If you're in town for the weekend, go check them out. They're open Thursday through Saturday. You can order online before 9 a.m. to lock it in at RegenioBBQ.com. I recommend the Texas Twinkies, the burn-ins, or maybe some Jack. What is it? They've got the sausage. Jalapeno Jack? Something. It's homemade. It's delicious. All right, you want to get some mailbag questions in?
Let's roll.
All right, this is the Diversified Lenders mailbag here from patreon.com/Gambling Gauchos. Get in the Discord. If you want to make money off your accounts receivable or something, call Diversified Lenders. They're much smarter than I am. He keeps telling us what they do, and I really should learn, but he's a good guy. All right. And I will be honest, this Discord mailbag went off the rails fairly quickly, so I'm going to have to scroll quite a bit. Okay. All right. Here it is. Good grief. These guys, man. Start, bench, cut, waffles, pancakes, French toast.
Start waffles, bench pancakes, cut French toast.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Unless you're home, then maybe I'm starting pancakes because I like my pancakes. Other people's pancakes are hit and miss, though.
Yep. It's a variety.
You can't trust other people's pancakes.
And if it's French toast sticks, then we've got a discussion. But just regular French toast, I'm out.
Agreed. If you're in a hotel and they've got the state of Texas waffle, it's the waffle for sure. Okay. Now we're talking potatoes, eggs, pancakes. Okay. All right. Here we go. I like the deal. What is it? What are we doing here? Now we have Kirk Cousins stats from Kyle. Good grief, guys. This is the mailbag thread. Why does Ryan look like the love child of JT Daniels and Joe Burrow? Are you a 5-star quarterback?
Yeah, I don't think I'm directly related to either of them, and I think if you've seen me throw a football, that's abundantly Clear. But Joey Burrow's a handsome guy, so I'll take it.
Yeah, they both are. We talk about brand wins in this Joey McGuire era, with TCU appearing to be overrated when analyzing their games based on quarterback injuries. Are we on a level playing field coming into this game, and should Joey be expected to have his team ready to bounce back and get a brand-defining win? How bad does a loss have to be for it to be concerning? So kind of a two-part question. Should you expect to win, A? And B, if you lose, what kind of loss concerns you?
No, you should not expect to win. I mean, you're on the road against a top 10 team. It feels kind of silly to expect to win, but you can win. This is a winnable game for Texas Tech. I don't think it's one that you're riding into overly confident on a win, but this is definitely a winnable game for Texas Tech. And I think if you go out there and you lose and your offense just puts up an absolute stinker again, that's when things get concerning. I mean, if you lose the 51-48, man, you're leaving Fort Worth feeling really good about this football team, regardless of the outcome. But if your offense can't manage to score more than, 20 points, you're in trouble.
I was just about to say, like a 45-17 loss would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
Back to back of them. I want to hear Money Mainville's thoughts on this one. Lots of young players outside. Oh, this is a basketball question. See, this is what we're doing. We're responding to our own comments. Is there any concern going into basketball season this year with one of the most highly anticipated transfers being out with a broken foot. And then he says, lots of young players and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a concern. And I don't really know who exactly knows how long Fardaws Amac is going to be out. I'm not even sure anybody really does. But definitely having a guy that big on your bench to start the season, it's definitely not great. And so we'll see how Texas Tech kind of adapts. We'll see how, whenever he's back on the field, how he can adjust to playing Big 12 minutes. But yeah, it's definitely a concern.
Would you liken this team more to Tubby Smith's first year roster-wise, or maybe like the year after the national championship run? Because in that one you have Kevin McCullough, TJ Shannon, a bunch of young players kind of getting first-time minutes. And then you go all the way back and it's Keenan Evans and Justin Gray and Norris Odiase all playing as freshmen. Is there any kind of correlation there, or do you expect to have a tournament team and a top 5 Big 12 conference record?
Yeah, this team kind of reminds me a lot of the 1920 team, but I think that they may end up being better. I think that there's a lot of talent on this roster, and even the young guys. I mean, there's a lot of young guards on this roster, which is always a concern in the Big 12. But hey, a lot of talent on this roster, and so I think it's fair to have big expectations for this team.
Fine. All right. Did you ever go to Furr's? That's the next question, but not really. It's a lot of Furr's talk here. I'm just going to scroll through all the Furr's talk here. Yep. Keep going. Okay. One of the guys has never been to Furr's. Were you a Furr's guy?
I have a wild story about Furr's.
Okay.
I wonder if we have the time to get this out of the way.
All right. So I was a Boy Scout growing up and did a lot of random things with my troop. And one of the things that we did was we went to the grand opening of Furr's in Plano, Texas, right off Highway 75. And our troops' responsibility was to raise the flag at the inaugural Plano Furr's. And so we did. We were on the news. It was my first media appearance, and I would go on. First of many, man. Now I'm just living as a Gaucho. Who would have guessed that day at Furr's?
Who would have, yeah.
But part of the deal was that we all got vouchers for a free dinner after we raised the flag, and it was kind of like an exclusive deal because it was like a soft grand opening, so there were only a couple of people there. And so, man, me and 6 other Boy Scouts raised this flag at a Furr's, and then just absolutely dominated a buffet that was entirely for each other, and it is one of the greatest memories that I have.
It's amazing. We work up quite an appetite raising the flag, and then you just get to knock back fried fish and whatever else they have.
I mean, what more could an 8-year-old Boy Scout ask for?
True. I guess the final question here, before we get to the final thoughts, is Gonzaga. Reports coming out a couple of days ago. It kind of broke again today from Thamel. And this happens all the time. And you as a fellow writer know what I'm talking about. But the headline is Gonzaga in talks to join the Big 12. And the story is Yormark meets with Gonzaga AD at some coffee shop. Like, it wasn't they're not having meetings yet. It was just an initial talk. But do you think there's any true smoke there that Gonzaga could be a basketball member of this conference within the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, alignment stuff is always a mess. Reporting on it is a mess because it's all bigwigs who are, usually impossible to really get a rundown on what they're actually doing. But I forget who it was that followed up that Danimal report, but somebody was reporting that, hey, these are very obviously preliminary discussions, but if Gonzaga comes, it'll be all sports, which I don't know what that means for football. But they've got a good baseball program up there in Spokane. And,
they do.
Obviously the basketball team, man, I know that a lot of people dig on them at times, and rightfully so, but they're a good basketball program. I don't really know how you could deny that. I think it makes the Big 12 better. And so I'm all for it. And if nothing else, I think these preliminary discussions just kind of show that, Yormac isn't playing around, and that's good news for the Big 12. I really don't see how the Big 12 dies with this man at the front. And so, sorry, Pac-12, if Gonzaga joins the Big 12, but we will happily lay you in your grave.
Happily. And I think you nailed it. I think if this proves anything, it's that Yormark isn't stagnant like that bump that was in front of the conference for a decade and was just reactionary all the time, Bob Bowlesby. He's out there making moves, trying to figure things out, talking about getting better and not just extending the same grant of rights you had before you went to the market 10 years ago, and TV markets have completely changed since then, but you just wanted to re-up. Bowlesby, man, it's going to take me a long time to get over Bowlesby. Maybe Yormark will make it easier. But, you look at Gonzaga, it's like they have rowing, but it's a lot of stuff that most schools have in the Big 12, women's soccer. They don't have softball, I don't think, but it's, tennis, volleyball, a lot of sports that make sense for the Big 12. And you know what? I think you just have TCU and West Virginia left in swimming and diving. So maybe you can find a couple of schools to be in your swimming and diving conference. You've got a wild array of schools in the wrestling conference. So whatever happens. But a men's basketball ad is more than just expansion. That is TV markets. You're getting Big Monday at 10 p.m. and millions of people watching that because it's Gonzaga and Texas Tech or Gonzaga and Kansas. I mean, that's just, you're printing money at that point.
Yep.
And I know it's basketball, not football, but still.
Yeah, it's a smart move for both sides. I really do think. I think obviously as conversations continue and they progress, we'll learn more about the details, and from there it'll be clear whether this actually is a good idea or not. But I think just the idea of adding a program at this stature in men's basketball, they've got a lot of good other athletic programs within that department. I really do think it's a win-win for both sides. And man, the one side that it might be a loss for is West Virginia. I mean, imagine taking a flight from Morgantown to Spokane to jump off a diving board and then coming back. That sounds brutal.
Well, Orlando too.
Yeah.
And maybe it is you have the swimming and diving in Omaha or wherever else it is, and you kind of you meet in middle America. You meet at Kansas City or something, but man, I think they can figure it out. And if it's just men's basketball, I think that's beneficial. If it's basketball and baseball, I think that's beneficial. If they want to come in with the whole conference, that's fine. Because the amount of basketball revenue to be gained by another perennial Sweet 16 team and the matchups you can have in men's basketball will pay for their tennis travel. I mean, that is net neutral. Gonzaga would be making 3 times as much money, just with 3 sports and not football. And I don't think you can give them a full revenue share without football, but I think you can make it worth their while. But they're also talking to the Big East. If the Big East survives, they're also talking to the Pac-12. If the Pac-12 survives, San Diego State seems to be in preliminary talks with the Pac-12, but I don't know if the Pac-12 is bracing for more schools leaving or if they just finally want to add because they missed so badly the last 2 times they could have added schools.
Yeah, there's a clicking timer on the Pac-12, and I think a lot of people in college sports can see that. And I think, even conversations like these, like you mentioned, it's exciting to watch the Big 12 be aggressive and to not just lay down and accept that, the new Big 12 is dead. I think that this conference is continuing to grow and it's getting stronger. And man, beyond all the revenue and just the sense that it makes for all sides, I think it's going to be a ton of fun. And that's what gets me excited as a fan, is just to watch a competitive conference with a lot of good programs within it. And so definitely excited to see how things shake out. I know that this will have my eye for likely the next couple of years and until something is really put on paper and implemented.
Yeah, I do think there's even if Gonzaga is at it. Well, I don't know. I don't know the time. You know what? I'm not up to date on my West Coast Conference media rights deals, so we'll have to look at that for the next episode. All right, any final thoughts here, Mainville?
Yeah, man, just excited to get it rolling with you guys. I mean, we've been talking about making this work for a while now, and no better time than now. We're gonna have some exciting things coming out throughout basketball season, and man, just excited to be a Gaucho. It's going to be a fun ride, and we've got lots of good stuff in store. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. And basketball preview, I'm assuming Sunday. We'll see what happens, but I would assume because the basketball season starts Monday. Isn't that crazy?
That's right.
The 7th.
That's insane.
All right. Well, you better get ready for it because it's coming whether we want it to or not. Huh?